Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. The Harry Potter films have often been criticized for leaving out important storylines, scenes, and even entire characters. It's especially frustrating with Order of the Phoenix, the longest book turned into the shortest movie. Yet sometimes the adaptations went the other way. They added scenes that were never in the original books. And some of those additions were actually quite successful. Today I want to talk about the moments that were either invented specifically for the films or significantly altered from the books. You might just be pleasantly surprised. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Harry and Hermione's dance. One of the most touching scenes in the entire saga exists only because of the filmmaker's imagination. In Deathly Hallows Part 1, after Ron leaves, Harry and Hermione are left alone. In the quiet of the tent, far from war and grief, they dance to the sound of a radio. Some saw it as a hint of a romance that never was. Others saw a moment of pure friendship. But one thing is clear, it was deeply emotional and human, and while it never appeared in the books, it became a cinematic gem. Number 2. Voldemort breaks through the protective charms. Visual storytelling is one of cinema's greatest strengths. That's why the creators of Deathly Hallows Part 2 chose to show just how powerful Voldemort truly is. We watch as he stands on a cliff and unleashes a storm of magic on the invisible protective shield over Hogwarts. It's a tense, apocalyptic moment. In the books, the school's protection is mentioned but never shown. On screen, magic crackles through the air, making the threat tangible and immediate. Number 3. Harry confronts Snape. In Deathly Hallows Part 2, Harry walks into the Great Hall in full view and directly challenges Snape in front of everyone. Their duel never begins, but the intensity of the moment is undeniable. Alan Rickman is a master of subtlety. Just one look from him reveals Snape's internal struggle. In the book, Harry remains under the invisibility cloak, and the confrontation never happens this way. The film turns it into a bold, symbolic scene, one of the saga's most powerful. Number 4. Death Eaters in the London Sky. Half-Blood Prince opens with a truly cinematic moment not found in the books. Death Eaters flying over London, wreaking havoc and tearing down bridges. Yes, in the books, only Voldemort could fly, the Death Eaters couldn't. But the visuals are undeniably effective. The scene instantly sets a dark tone. Safety is gone, and war has entered the Muggle world. Number 5. Harry and the Cafe Girl. The opening of Half-Blood Prince surprised many viewers. Harry is sitting in a Muggle cafe, flirting with a waitress and even arranging a date. But he never makes it. Dumbledore appears and pulls him back into a world where war, not love, comes first. It's a sweet, light-hearted moment that gives the audience a breather. For once we see Harry not as the chosen one, but as a teenager with ordinary feelings and dreams. Number 6. Bellatrix at the Burrow and the Astronomy Tower. Helena Bonham Carter's portrayal of Bellatrix Lestrange was so powerful that the filmmakers couldn't resist giving her more screen time. 2 scenes were added that never appeared in the book: the attack on the Burrow and her presence at the Astronomy Tower. Both scenes add darkness and chaos, something that was missing from the mostly romantic tone of the 6th film. Yes, they break canon, but they're woven in effectively, turning Bellatrix into a true symbol of madness and terror. Number 7. McGonagall and the Living Statues. The Great Hall is empty, dark, waiting. Then Minerva McGonagall steps forward. She raises her wand and calls out, "Pietotum locomotor!" High above, the stone guardians of Hogwarts creak to life. Suits of armor leap from their pedestals and march into formation. The walls rumble. Dust falls from the ceiling. And then she says it, smiling like a girl on Christmas morning. I've always wanted to use that spell. That line wasn't in the books. In Deathly Hallows, McGonagall organizes the defense of the castle with fierce command, but J.K. Rowling never gives her this moment of joy. The film does, and it changes everything. We see not just the stern professor, but the woman beneath, the one who loves her school with a fierce, childlike heart. For once, her power isn't cold, it's radiant. The stone knights later charge into battle, crashing through rubble, shielding students. It's pure magic, both in effect and emotion. For fans, it's unforgettable. Not because of the spell, but because of who cast it. McGonagall, always the backbone of Hogwarts, finally has a moment where she is not just brave, but alive with wonder. Number 8. Narcissa Malfoy and the Forest Scene. The forest is still. Shadows stretch across the leaves. Voldemort stands over Harry's body, triumphant. He thinks the boy is dead, but it's Narcissa Malfoy who kneels beside him. Her wand is trembling. Her face is unreadable. She leans close. "Is Draco alive?" she whispers. Harry nods. Barely. That's all she needs. She rises and lies. "He's dead." In the book, this scene exists, but it's quiet, almost clinical. Rowling writes, "Is Draco alive? Is he in the castle?" And when Harry answers yes, she turns away and walks back to Voldemort. But in the film, everything is heightened. The silence, the slow movement, the raw, aching fear of a mother. Helen McCrory doesn't need many lines. Her eyes carry the whole weight of the war. It's not about sides anymore, not about blood or loyalty. It's about her son. Narcissa, once proud and cold, makes a choice that changes everything. She lies to the Dark Lord to save her child, and in doing so, she saves Harry too. Voldemort doesn't check. He simply believes her. The fate of the wizarding world turns on a whisper between two parents. This moment redefines the Malfoys, no longer villains, just a broken family trying to survive. The film gives them grace the books never fully did. It lets Narcissa be more than a Death Eater's wife. She becomes a mother first. And in that quiet, sacred second in the forest, she becomes Harry's unexpected protector. Not with spells, but with a lie born of love. Number 9. Lupin and Tonks' final moment. The camera moves quickly through the chaos of Hogwarts. Explosions, screams, smoke. But for one brief second, it slows. Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks reach for each other's hands. No words, just eyes locking across the battlefield. They lie side by side, their fingers barely touching. That's all the film gives us. And it's enough. In the book, their deaths are quiet. Off-screen, J.K. Rowling writes, Remus and Tonks lay motionless, pale and peaceful, apparently asleep beneath the dark, enchanted ceiling. There are no final words, no farewell. It's a shock, and it's meant to be. But the film adds that sliver of humanity before the storm swallows them. A glance, a touch, a promise that even death can't interrupt. They were parents now. Little Teddy Lupin had just been born. And still they fought, together. The war didn't pause for families or feelings, but in that small moment on screen, the film gave them back something the book didn't. Presence. A final breath of love before the silence. It was the look of two people who knew what they were risking and still chose to fight side by side. That hand reaching out became more than a gesture. It became a farewell, a vow. When Harry later sees their bodies, the viewer remembers the touch, remembers the glance. The film didn't change the outcome, but it softened the blow. Not with words, but with something harder to forget, a moment of love in the middle of war. Number 10, Snape and the Tears of Memory. Snape is dying. Blood pools beneath him in the boathouse. His breath is short. His eyes search the shadows, and then Harry appears, slowly, carefully. Snape looks at him, not with hatred, not with pride, but with urgency. "Take it," he whispers. A tear slips down his cheek. Another follows, and in those tears the truth begins. The film does something the book never describes. It turns Snape's memories into literal tears. Not just a physical form of magic, but a metaphor. Everything he was, every secret, every regret, spills from him as he dies. In the book, Rowling writes simply, Take it, take it. And Harry gathers the memories in a vial. But here the visual tells a deeper story. The tears fall gently, as if the pain has finally broken free. Alan Rickman gives nothing and everything in those final seconds. No grand farewell, no forgiveness, only silence and wet eyes. It's not just a man dying, it's a soul unraveling. The camera lingers on Harry's face as he looks into Snape's, confused, shocked, but reverent. He doesn't yet understand, but he listens. He takes the tears, he holds them like relics. When Harry later pours those same tears into the pensieve, he isn't just discovering Snape's past, he's carrying it. In the book, Snape's story unfolds with words. In the film, it begins with tears. The choice to make them vessels of memory changes everything, because it means Snape never said goodbye with words. He said it with what he always hid: his pain, his love, and the truth. Number 11. Harry and Dumbledore at King's Cross. King's Cross, but not the real one. The film takes the words from the book and turns them into something dreamlike. A pale white station, soaked in soft light, empty, endless. Harry lies on the ground. His glasses are gone, he is clean, weightless, and then he hears it, Dumbledore's voice, gentle, steady. "You brave, brave man." In the book, the dialogue is nearly the same. "Is this real, or has this been happening inside my head?" Harry asks. Dumbledore replies, "Of course it is happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it is not real?" But the film shows us more. Behind the white mist and soft echoes lies a dark shape, small, crumpled, suffering. It's Voldemort's soul, what's left of it. Inside Harry, it cries under a bench. A creature no one wants to name. The visual is powerful. That broken piece of soul, bloody and gasping, says everything the dialogue doesn't. In the book, Dumbledore simply explains it, but in the film we see it, and we feel it. The thing that once terrified the world now lies pathetic and dying. The contrast is brutal. Voldemort's immortality, shown as a childlike monster, abandoned in a clean, timeless void. Harry makes his choice. He will return, not because he must, but because he wants to. The scene doesn't just explain death, it explains life. The film doesn't just adapt Rowling's words, it elevates them. This is no longer just a train station, it is the quiet place between sacrifice and rebirth. And Harry, for the first time, is not a boy running from fate. He is walking toward it, calm, ready, alive. Number 12. Hermione and Ron destroy the Horcrux in the chamber. In Deathly Hallows Part 2. Ron and Hermione descend into the Chamber of Secrets. They are alone. No Harry, no Dumbledore. Just two teenagers facing dark magic in a place soaked in death. The scene doesn't exist in the book, not like this. J.K. Rowling only tells us the Horcrux was destroyed, but the film gives us the moment, tense, intimate, and unforgettable. They stand before the statue of Salazar Slytherin, the stone face frozen in a permanent sneer. The same chamber where the basilisk once slithered, where Ginny nearly died. Ron mimics Harry's voice in Parseltongue. It's clumsy, but it works. The door groans open, the symbolism is sharp. Ron, once afraid of spiders, now speaks the snake's tongue to enter a room of pure darkness. It's a transformation he earned. The Horcrux, Helga Hufflepuff's cup, doesn't go quietly. When Hermione strikes, it screams. A tidal wave crashes against them. Serpents of water rise, hissing, coiling, crashing into walls. The music swells. And then it's over. They stand breathless. The cup lies shattered. The silence is heavy like a storm just past. Then comes the kiss. Unplanned, fierce. After years of hesitation, fear, and almosts, finally, something honest, a spark in the deepest shadows. In the book, this destruction is a line. Ron and Hermione reappeared, both a little damp, but triumphant. That's all. No chamber, no kiss, no Parseltongue. But the film knew better. It gave them a stage, gave the chamber one last moment to matter, and it made the destruction of the Horcrux not just a task, but a test of courage, memory, and love. Number 13, Harry sets Hedwig free in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. There is a quiet cinematic moment that never appeared in J.K. Rowling's books. On the Hogwarts grounds, just before a storm of revelations and danger, Harry opens Hedwig's cage. Without a word, he lets her fly. The snowy owl spreads her wings and glides into the dusk. No music, swells. No dialogue is spoken, but everything about this brief moment feels intimate. It tells us more about Harry than any spell ever could, and this wasn't just a pet being released. It was a boy giving freedom to the only creature that had been with him since his first real birthday. In the books, Hedwig is present, yes, wise, proud, and often irritated. But the films added this small act of care, making their bond visible. It reminded us that Hedwig wasn't a tool or a sidekick. She was family. As Hagrid once said when he gave her to Harry, "Ain't no better owl, smart as they come." That moment of release stood in contrast to what was coming. Harry was about to learn that Sirius Black was not the villain he believed. Time would twist, shadows would rise. In a story filled with dementors and betrayal, this one act, letting Hedwig fly free, was the last breath of calm. She wasn't flying away from danger. She was flying into memory, later in Deathly Hallows. And when she dies protecting Harry, that soft image of her in flight returns like a whisper from the past. The books never showed Harry setting her free, but they showed how much he loved her. In Order of the Phoenix, after Hedwig is injured, Harry snaps, "I want to know how she died. Who did it?" His voice shakes. He never cries over her in the text, but he fights for her. And that small, invented scene in the third film, Harry opening the cage, is the visual echo of that grief, the farewell he never got to say. Number 14, Lavender Brown's death. The moment is so brief that many viewers blink and miss it, but for those who notice, it leaves a chill that doesn't fade easily. Lavender Brown, once a giggling, flirtatious figure in the Gryffindor common room, lies motionless on the stone floor of Hogwarts, her body still and bloodied, her wide eyes staring upward with no trace of the warmth they once held. Above her, Fenrir Greyback snarls, his lips wet with the blood of his prey. This isn't just a death, it's a deliberate visual statement, one that was invented solely for the film. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. In the books, Lavender's fate is ambiguous. Here it is final. This change, though minor in screen time, fundamentally alters the tone of the final battle. It inserts a realism the books only imply but do not dare to show so plainly. When J.K. Rowling wrote the climactic battle of Hogwarts in the final chapters of Deathly Hallows, she balanced violence with a kind of restraint. Casualties were named: Fred Weasley, Remus Lupin, Nymphadora Tonks, but the deaths often happened off-page. The reader was spared the sight of the moment of death. Lavender Brown's film Death breaks that rule. It shows the terror, the ferocity, the grotesque face of war. And it does so through a character viewers know, perhaps not intimately, but well enough to feel the weight of her end. In the books, Lavender is last seen feebly stirring after being attacked by Greyback. The precise line from chapter 32 of Deathly Hallows reads, "Greyback was thrown backward by a body-striking spell. He hit the opposite wall and fell to the ground, and Harry saw Lavender Brown, who was feebly stirring." There is no resolution. The text gives her a chance at survival, a hint of life, a flicker of hope. It is left to the imagination whether she makes it or not. Rowling does not return to her. Lavender vanishes in a sea of chaos, one of many wounded in the war-torn corridors of the castle. The book avoids making the scene linger. The film, however, decides to linger. The filmmakers wanted to show that no one was safe, and Lavender, became a tool for that message. Her body, limp and mauled, is discovered by Hermione and Professor Trelawney in the middle of the melee. The image is haunting not just because of the gore, but because it contrasts so sharply with who Lavender was. She was life, she was youth, she was frivolity in the middle of war. Her absurd relationship with Ron, her dramatic sighs of 1-1, her jealousy and heartbreak, all of it painted her as emotionally exaggerated, but fundamentally human. In death, all that character is erased, reduced to silence. What the film achieved through this visual was something the book hinted at but held back from fully embracing. Hogwarts was no longer the enchanted school of butterbeer and Quidditch. It was a battlefield, and war does not choose its victims based on narrative importance. Lavender's death tells the audience it could happen to anyone. The fact that she is killed not by a faceless Death Eater but by Fenrir Greyback makes it worse. Greyback is not just a villain, he is a sadist. He doesn't merely kill, he hunts, he ravages, he relishes in the fear he creates. He represents the loss of humanity in conflict. That it is him who ends Lavender's life deepens the tragedy. The film shows Greyback bent over her, his teeth at her throat, animalistic and monstrous. It's not just murder, it's desecration. The fact that her body is only glimpsed briefly afterward is enough. The filmmakers don't show the aftermath in detail. They don't need to. They've already done what they set out to do, remind viewers that this war is no game, and that its victims will include the young, the naive, the ones who were never built for war in the first place. There is also something quietly brilliant in choosing Lavender for this scene. Other deaths in the film are heroic or redemptive. Fred dies defending his home and family. Lupin and Tonks die off-screen but are shown lying side by side, as if even in death they are at peace. Snape's death is tragic, but it serves a larger narrative. Lavender's, in contrast, is cruel and meaningless. It carries no redemption, no closure, no message. It is loss for the sake of loss, pain without purpose. That is what war often is. The character of Lavender had grown across the films and books from background noise to comic relief, and then to a figure of teenage heartbreak. She loved Ron obsessively and melodramatically, yes, but she was also loyal, and she fought at the Battle of Hogwarts. She returned despite the danger, and took her stand alongside others in Dumbledore's army. Her presence on the battlefield is not just incidental, she chose to fight, and for that she died. The film uses that choice to demonstrate that bravery doesn't always lead to triumph. Sometimes it leads to blood on stone. This moment also serves as a stark turning point for the audience. By the time Lavender dies, the battle is well underway. But this is when the emotional cost becomes tangible. Until then, the losses had been impersonal. Spells fly, walls crumble, giants rage. But it is in seeing a familiar student, one who once painted her bedroom with posters of unicorns and hearts, lying dead in the halls of her school, that the viewer truly understands. The war is not something happening around the characters, it is happening to them. Number 15, Hermione erases her parents' memories. The camera pans across a quiet suburban street bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Inside a modest home filled with warmth and normalcy, a young witch stands behind her parents, wand raised with trembling fingers. This is not a scene drawn from J.K. Rowling's text, nor one a reader of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows would encounter in its original form. Yet it is among the most emotionally haunting sequences of the entire film series. Crafted from near nothing in the source material, this cinematic moment brought to life one of Hermione Granger's most selfless and excruciating decisions, erasing herself from her parents' memory. In the book, this event is mentioned in passing. Hermione says, "I've also modified my parents' memories so that they're convinced they're really called Wendell and Monica Wilkins, and that their life's ambition is to move to Australia." It's a line spoken with calm resolve during the trio's planning stage, almost clinically, as Hermione lists the protective measures she has taken. But the film expands that brief summary into a visual, visceral heartbreak that echoes far beyond the quiet dialogue of the book. The filmmakers understood the depth of this act. Rather than simply hearing Hermione speak about what she had done, they chose to immerse the viewer in her sacrifice. Emma Watson, portraying Hermione, walks toward her unsuspecting parents with solemn grace. Her wand hand quivers as she prepares to sever the emotional bond she's shared with them since birth. As the spell Obliviate is cast, the camera pulls back, showing family photographs where her smiling face gradually fades frame by frame. The pictures remain, the vacations, the birthdays, the ordinary moments, but the girl in them disappears, like a ghost erased from history. This haunting alteration is not merely a dramatization, it is a narrative choice that reveals Hermione's inner world with cinematic poignancy. It shows her bravery in a way that words might struggle to capture. It is one thing to say she erased herself from their memories, another entirely to see her vanish, pixel by pixel, from the very evidence of her parents' lives. This act of magic, quiet and bloodless, becomes one of the most violent forms of love imaginable. The spell itself, Obliviate, is traditionally used by Ministry of Magic officials, Obliviators, to erase memories of magic from muggles who have witnessed something they shouldn't. For Hermione to perform this magic on her own parents, two dentists living a quiet muggle life, is a profound inversion of its usual application. She is not concealing magic for their benefit, she is removing herself to protect them. In doing so, she does not just edit a memory, she annihilates her very existence from their past. This moment is unique in the film canon for how it handles emotional weight through silence. There is no music swelling dramatically, no exposition. Only the sound of her mother's fingernail gently tapping a coffee mug, the flicker of fading photographs, and Hermione's own retreating footsteps. The grief is not verbalized, it is shown, raw and quiet. Emma Watson's performance is understated and devastating, a glimpse into the resolve and torment that Hermione has carried throughout the series. What this scene accomplishes above all is to frame Hermione not only as a brilliant witch, but as a deeply human character. She has always been the one who thinks ahead, who prepares for every outcome. But this moment takes her logic and wraps it in pain. It becomes a sacrifice not just of safety but of identity. In ensuring that her parents can live free from the wrath of Death Eaters, she also ensures that they forget their only daughter. They won't grieve if something happens to her. They won't be hunted, but they also won't know her anymore. This decision could only come from someone like Hermione. Raised in the Muggle world, she has always straddled two lives, the ordinary and the magical. Her parents were her first link to love, stability, and belonging. Erasing that link is a magical act, yes, but more than that, it is a philosophical one. What does it mean to erase yourself from someone else's story? What kind of courage does it take to walk away from everything you know you are, not for your own survival, but for someone else's peace? By choosing to open. Deathly Hallows Part 1. With this scene, the filmmakers root the narrative not in action or exposition, but in sacrifice. Before we see Harry at Privet Drive, before Ron at the Burrow, we see Hermione losing everything. It sets the tone for the film. This is not a story of childhood adventure anymore. This is war. And in war, losses are made in silence, far from battlefields. Sometimes the greatest battles are the ones that happen in living rooms, over photo albums, with no one to witness them but the person holding the wand. The quiet brilliance of this edition lies in its simplicity. There are no special effects aside from the photos, no dramatic wand work, just the ache of inevitability. The spell itself is quick, but the weight of it is eternal. The fact that the Grangers, Kate, Wendell and Monica Wilkins, as they come to believe, never reappear in the film or even in the books afterward, only adds to the tragedy. The viewer is left to wonder if Hermione ever reversed the spell. Did they reunite after Voldemort's fall, or did she leave them untouched, their memories sealed for good, to give them the peace she fought so hard to preserve? This question lingers because the scene is so expertly constructed. It burns itself into memory precisely because it is not from the book. It is a gift from the filmmakers, a way to deepen Hermione's character beyond the already complex girl we've come to know. The film allows us to feel what the book only tells us, and in doing so it reveals the pain behind the decisions that war demands of even the youngest heroes. Number 16. Dumbledore extinguishes the fire in the cave. The cave's darkness did not end with the destruction of the Inferi. As Harry and Dumbledore stood there, the Half-Blood Prince novel offered only brief lines, almost matter-of-fact, about their departure. J.K. Rowling chose restraint. The fire was extinguished, the basin was emptied, the locket, though fake, had been retrieved. Dumbledore, frail and barely conscious, clung to Harry as they prepared to leave. There was no spectacle, just quiet urgency. But when this same moment was brought to life in the film adaptation, it was not restraint that defined the tone. Instead, it was raw, cinematic grandeur. The cave erupted in fire, a furnace of magic spiraling out of control, until one man, a wizard in his final days, silenced the inferno with a single gesture. Dumbledore's firestorm and its extinguishing marked one of the most visually stunning, purely invented sequences in the entire Harry Potter film saga. The moment was born of visual imagination, not Rowling's pen, in the film version of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. After Dumbledore conjures a massive ring of flame to keep the Inferi at bay, he later extinguishes the very blaze he conjured. This is not present in the book. In fact, the entire image of the towering cyclone of fire is an invention. The book says only Dumbledore had managed to conjure a fire that drove the Inferi back. The fire itself is a powerful image, even in prose, but it is limited in description. Rowling was not writing with the camera in mind. Her focus was Harry's desperation and Dumbledore's weakening body. When the film director David Yates and his team reimagined this scene, they made a choice. They expanded the fire into a character of its own. In the movie, Dumbledore rises above the black water, floating on the stone island. His robes ripple. Inferi climb up the rock, encircling Harry. Then with an effortless motion, Dumbledore raises his arms, and a ring of flame explodes outward, blinding, roaring, and alive. It is not just fire, it is an elemental force that obeys him completely. The flames take shape like a living beast, consuming the Inferi with an almost divine fury. This is not a defensive spell, it is not merely protection. It is power in its purest form, raw, ancient, final. And yet the most haunting part of that scene is not the fire itself. It is what follows, the silence, the control, the solemnity with which Dumbledore extinguishes the fire. The camera focuses not on the flames dying, but on the man who summoned them. His face, pale and drawn from the potion he drank, is calm. His eyes, dimmed by pain, do not reflect pride or triumph. He does not revel in the spectacle. Instead, he lowers his hand and the fire simply vanishes, as if it had only existed because he allowed it. The image is unforgettable, chaos defeated not by more chaos, but by stillness. This visual moment, invented solely for the film, carries a symbolic weight. It tells the audience something about Albus Dumbledore that words on a page could never quite express. He is a master of magic, yes, but more than that, he is a master of restraint. Even as he commands one of the most devastating magical forces ever seen on screen, he remains composed. He is not moved by glory. He does not seek to impress. The spell is not for show. It is a necessity, an extension of his will, an answer to a threat. The fire comes and goes, not as an act of rage, but as a measured response to death itself. In the book, Harry's focus is on Dumbledore's health. The chapter is titled The Cave, and its climax is Dumbledore's agony from drinking the potion. Harry's panic, the The fear of losing his mentor and the desperate summoning of fire to protect him, that is the emotional center. "It's all right, Professor," Harry says in the book. "We're nearly there. I can apparate us both back." There is no mention of what becomes of the flames. The Inferi are driven off. The lake goes still. Rowling moves the reader swiftly to the return to the cave entrance. It is sparse, efficient, tense. There is no time for awe. Yet the film finds awe in the silence after the storm. Dumbledore's act of extinguishing the flames becomes a final punctuation mark. It elevates him beyond the level of a powerful wizard. It renders him mythic. He is not merely skilled in magic. He embodies magic. The control with which he disperses the fire signals a deeper theme, the fragility of power, the dignity of mastery without arrogance. It echoes an earlier idea from the books, when Dumbledore says, "It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." In that moment, Dumbledore chooses quiet. He chooses to end the fire, not prolong it. This decision stands in stark contrast to the behavior of other wizards we meet in the series. Voldemort, for instance, who always seeks to overwhelm. Voldemort's magic is domination, a force of terror meant to bend others to his will. Dumbledore's magic, though just as powerful, is controlled, purposeful, even beautiful. The visual metaphor is clear. Where Voldemort would have let the fire consume, Dumbledore uncreates what he conjured, leaving only darkness and embers behind. Michael Gambon, portraying Dumbledore, brings an essential weariness to the scene. His expression is not that of a hero bathing in glory. He looks tired, spiritually and physically. His eyes are hollowed by pain, not pride. This weariness adds layers to the visual. It is not just a man taming fire, it is a man burning out. The fire then becomes a mirror of Dumbledore himself, brilliant, immense and fading. The visual trick works emotionally. The audience senses that this is one of Dumbledore's last great acts of magic. We are witnessing the twilight of a titan. Number 17. Neville confesses his love to Luna. Neville Longbottom was never supposed to be a hero, and Luna Lovegood was never supposed to be understood. But somewhere in the halls of Hogwarts, as the final battle brewed and death closed in from all sides, a moment of unexpected warmth flickered across the screen, a moment that never appeared in J.K. Rowling's books. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, as the dust of war settled and Voldemort's forces surged through the broken walls of the castle, Neville, his face dirty and bloodied, suddenly declared that he had to find Luna, not to strategize, not to fight, but to confess that he was in love with her. This confession did not exist in the books. It was never written in ink, never passed through the filter of Rowling's words. Nowhere in the text does Neville Longbottom express romantic feelings for Luna Lovegood. In fact, their interactions in the novels are limited, gentle, and mostly practical. They attend Slughorn's Christmas party together in The Half-Blood Prince, an act that, while charming, is more of a friendly outing than a sign of deep affection. Neville asks Luna, and she accepts kindly. No sparks fly, no blushes rise. The gesture remains polite, touching in its own quiet way, but not romantic. And yet the filmmakers made a different choice. With the weight of 7 books behind them and thousands of visual frames left to craft meaning, they gave us something the books had never explicitly promised, the possibility of love between the unexpected. David Yates, the director, and Steve Kloves, the screenwriter, understood that films rely on moments that pierce quickly through time, that suggest entire lifetimes in a few sentences. When Neville says he has to find Luna, the audience is caught between laughter and awe. It is so human, so deeply vulnerable for a boy who had been overlooked for most of his life to seize the madness of battle as the perfect time to speak his heart. This wasn't just a throwaway line. It came after Neville had risked everything, blown up a bridge to slow the Death Eaters, and stood before Voldemort himself with the sword of Gryffindor in his hand. His confession about Luna came not from weakness, but from strength. The kind of strength that understands love is not a distraction, it is the reason to fight at all. The scene functions not only as romantic fan service, but also as a subtle thesis of the entire saga. Even amidst horror, there is tenderness. Even as war consumes, the heart searches for connection. The choice to pair Neville and Luna, even briefly, resonated with fans because it made emotional sense. Neville, whose journey was marked by clumsiness, self-doubt, and quiet endurance, found in Luna a kindred spirit. Luna, too, had been dismissed, mocked for her beliefs, her dreamy voice, her wild hair, and untamed thoughts. They were both outsiders, both observers in a world of noise. But where Neville was grounded by earth, tradition, and heritage, Luna was untethered, floating just above the reach of rules and logic. Together they offered a kind of cosmic balance. In the books, Luna's closest connection in Dumbledore's army seems to be with Harry. He respects her more than most, and she is one of the few who truly sees him without illusion. But their bond is never romantic. Meanwhile, Neville finds leadership in the final book, rallying the remnants of the resistance within the walls of Hogwarts. The narrative doesn't suggest he confides in Luna, but one can imagine that during those long months of hiding and resisting, their companionship might have deepened. The film gives form to this imagined space. It builds a bridge over a silence and fills it with affection. The line itself, Neville's statement that he's got to go and find Luna, tell her I'm mad for her, lands like a sudden sunbeam. It is raw and unpolished, perfect in its timing. We believe him because he says it in the face of death, not in the comfort of a safe return. This is no teenage crush revealed at a dance. This is a man in the making, willing to expose his feelings when he has every reason to be silent. And Luna, even though she is unaware of this moment in the film, becomes a symbol of what must be protected: wonder, mystery, and the ability to love. There is something inherently cinematic about this edition. Books dwell in thoughts, films must act. What might be pages of internal monologue in a novel must be expressed in a glance, a gesture, or, in this case, a bold confession. And so the creators, perhaps aware of the looming finality of the series, allowed themselves a liberty that felt more like a reward than a divergence. They gave Luna the soft ending she deserved, and Neville the romantic arc he had earned. It's interesting to compare this fictional romance with what the books reveal about Neville's future. In an interview after the publication of the final novel, Rowling mentioned that Neville eventually marries Hannah Abbott, a minor character and Hufflepuff student. Hannah becomes the landlady of the Leaky Cauldron, and together they live above the pub. It is a quaint and fitting end, one that suggests domestic peace. But it lacks the eccentric spark that Luna would have brought into his life. Luna, for her part, goes on to marry Rolf Scamander, the grandson of famed magizoologist Newt Scamander, and travels the world discovering magical creatures. Their paths diverge. The film, however, lets them meet at a point where the world might still be made anew. What the filmmakers did, in essence, was freeze a possibility, a brief alternate timeline where Neville and Luna become more than friends. In the grand web of fan fiction, this pairing, often dubbed Lunaville, has long been a favourite. The books may not indulge this fantasy, but they do not contradict it either. The textual silence between Neville and Luna leaves room for interpretation, and the film chose to fill that space with hope. One could argue that this moment is a crystallization of the story's emotional logic rather than its literal canon. The Harry Potter series, for all its magic and monsters, is deeply invested in the human experience. Grief, fear, loyalty, courage, and yes, love are the true spells at its core. Neville's confession to Luna is not about securing a date or even about hearing a response. It is an offering, a way of saying, before the end, I want to be honest. Before the darkness swallows everything, I want you to know. The scene also serves a structural purpose. It gives the audience a breath. In the chaos of spells, deaths, and destruction, this moment grounds us. It reminds us of what's at stake. When characters love one another, the fight matters more. The battle becomes more than a spectacle. It becomes a defense of something sacred. Luna's ethereal presence, paired with Neville's solid resolve, embodies that contrast beautifully. In many ways, Luna had already become a figure of almost mythic strength by the final film. She saw the Thestrals before others could. She spoke of death as if it were just another room. Her otherworldliness was not a weakness, but a perspective the others lacked. If anyone could accept love with grace, even in the middle of a battlefield, it was her. And if anyone had earned the right to speak it aloud, it was Neville. There's also a tenderness in how the moment is treated. It's not played for laughs or dramatic music. It's quiet, nearly rushed, like a thought escaping before the speaker can stop it. This authenticity is what makes it believable. It doesn't scream romance, it whispers it, just loud enough for those who needed to hear it. Had the books included such a confession, it might have felt out of place without proper build-up. But in the films, where character arcs must be condensed and emotionally heightened, it fits like a final note in a familiar melody. Luna and Neville, though not a canonical couple, offer a dream of what could be. They are the gentle counterpoint to the epic romance of Harry and Ginny or the long-brewing tension between Ron and Hermione. This moment also reminds us that side characters matter, that their hearts too beat with stories. Luna and Neville were never the chosen ones, never the leads of prophecy or power, but in this small invention by the filmmakers, they become stars of their own constellation. It is a gesture of narrative generosity, an acknowledgement that heroism takes many forms, and sometimes it simply means saying what you feel. For viewers who grew up with the films, this scene lingered in memory long after the credits rolled. It became a symbol of youthful bravery, not in the face of monsters, but in the face of uncertainty. Neville's words echo a truth that transcends the wizarding world. Love, even unspoken, gives us strength. Love, even fleeting, can change how we face the end. In the grand scheme of Harry Potter's cinematic adaptations, many moments were altered or invented. Some were criticized for diverging too far from the source. But this edition, Neville's confession to Luna, stands among the few that enriched rather than contradicted. It is an emotional invention rooted in thematic truth. When we remember that scene, we don't think of script notes or fan theories. We think of a boy who found his courage and a girl who taught him to see the world differently. We think of how, even on the edge of ruin, someone chose to believe in something beautiful. We think of how love, whether returned or not, is worth saying out loud. And in that fleeting, fictional confession, we find something very real. Number 18, Luna leads Harry to the diadem. In the chaos of war and the crumbling walls of Hogwarts, there is a moment of quiet defiance, a breath of clarity amid smoke and rubble. It is not marked by a wand duel or a cry for vengeance, but by Luna Lovegood, serene, dreamy, and utterly underestimated, taking Harry Potter by the hand and pulling him toward salvation. This scene, born from the cinematic adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, is one of the most significant departures from the original text, and yet it feels completely right. It gives Luna a moment of agency that the books never allowed her, transforming her from a curious side character to a vital thread in the fate of the wizarding world. In J.K. Rowling's original novel, the discovery of the lost diadem of Ravenclaw unfolds through Harry's inner revelations. It is his sudden memory of Helena Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady, that leads him down the correct path. There is no guiding hand, no outside voice insisting he pay attention. The moment is deeply internal, cerebral, and solitary. And then it came to him. The ghost of Ravenclaw Tower, the book whispers, letting the realization dawn in silence. But the film reshapes this narrative beat entirely. Instead of solitude, It is Luna who calls out to him, demands that he listen, insists that he not brush her off. The softness in her voice is gone. She is firm, insistent, and the result is astonishingly powerful. The film offers her something more than just a passing role. As Harry charges through the shattered halls of Hogwarts, he's overwhelmed. The castle is under siege, people are dying, and he's still no closer to destroying Voldemort's Horcruxes. Then comes Luna, like a still star in the swirling galaxy of chaos. She doesn't plead. She acts. She grabs his hand. She leads. And in that moment, her entire character is reframed, not as the loony girl who sees creatures others can't, but as someone whose clarity of thought cuts through panic and noise. This cinematic shift does more than enhance the story's drama. It subtly rewrites Luna's place in Harry's life. In the books, he often enjoys her company but rarely seeks it. He finds her strange, albeit comforting. But in this moment on film, he begins to rely on her. Not just as an ally in war, but as someone with real wisdom. It's a reframing that gives Luna the respect she's always deserved and never demanded. By giving Luna this pivotal role, the film acknowledges something the books only hint at, that she sees truth in ways others can't. The dreamy detachment that often made her a target of ridicule becomes her greatest strength. Where others are consumed by fear, Luna is clear-minded. Where others falter, she acts. The film scene crystallizes this essence, placing her not at the fringes, but at the heart of the story. Harry's reaction in the film is also telling. At first, he ignores her. He is frustrated, focused, dismissive. But when she shouts, "You listen to me, Harry Potter!" it breaks through. It is not just a raised voice, it's a shift in power. For the first time, Luna demands to be heard, and Harry listens. Not because she's shouting, but because something in her urgency speaks to truth. He looks at her, not past her, not through her. And that look says everything. He sees her. This is no small transformation. In the books, Luna is often described with a mixture of fondness and awkward distance. She had straggly, waist-length, dirty blonde hair, very pale eyebrows and protuberant eyes that gave her a permanently surprised look, Harry thinks, in Order of the Phoenix. He tolerates her eccentricities but rarely embraces them. The film scene corrects that imbalance. It does not abandon her oddness, it lets it exist, but it pairs it with precision and courage. The choice to make Luna the catalyst for finding the diadem also reframes the entire Ravenclaw subplot. In the book, Ravenclaw's legacy feels like a ghost story, buried under layers of history. Helena Ravenclaw's tale of jealousy, betrayal, and regret is haunting, yes, but distant. Luna, however, brings that legacy into the present. As a proud Ravenclaw, she embodies the house's values not just in intellect, but in intuition. The film trusts her with the wisdom of her house and uses her to carry its history forward. It's a poetic symmetry. The diadem, once worn by Rowena Ravenclaw, was said to enhance the wisdom of the wearer. And yet it is Luna's natural wisdom, not magically enhanced, that points the way. She becomes, in a sense, the spiritual heir to Rowena herself. Not through blood, but through truth. In a world obsessed with bloodlines and legacies, that message is quietly radical. Visually, the film intensifies the power of the scene. The castle burns around them, the walls groan with magic and memory. And in this devastation, Luna's voice is clear, her steps sure. The cinematography frames her not as a girl in the background, but as a figure bathed in light, leading Harry into the unknown. It's a rare moment of cinematic poetry when direction, character, and narrative align. This moment is also a form of narrative justice. Luna, who lost her mother at a young age, who was kidnapped and imprisoned for daring to speak truth, who was mocked for her beliefs, finally gets to be more than just an eccentric presence. She gets to be a hero, and not the kind of hero who casts killing curses or leads armies, but the kind of hero who sees what others don't and speaks when it matters most. The choice to add this moment is one of the film's best inventions. It doesn't contradict the book, it deepens it. By creating a new path for Harry, one led by Luna, it enriches both characters. Harry, often too burdened to see beyond the immediate, learns to listen. Luna, often too easily dismissed, demands space. Together they form a moment of unexpected balance. This balance is echoed later when Harry confronts Helena Ravenclaw. He speaks with a clarity and purpose that comes, in part, from Luna's push. Her insistence has opened him up. It's a quiet transformation, but a vital one. Without Luna's intervention, he may not have made that final leap of understanding. And in a story about choices, every nudge counts. From a storytelling perspective, the scene follows a perfect rhythm. There is tension, conflict, revelation. Luna appears at Harry's low point. Her presence disrupts his direction. He resists. She challenges. He surrenders. They move forward. It's a classic beat, mentor and hero, but rendered with softness and depth. Luna is not a Dumbledore or a Sirius. She is something rarer, a guide without ego. This scene also shows the richness of ensemble storytelling. Harry's journey has always been shaped by those around him. Hermione's logic, Ron's loyalty, Dumbledore's guidance. But Luna brings something unique, a quiet certainty, untouched by ambition or fear. Her voice is the one that reminds Harry of the bigger picture, that this war is not just about strategy or vengeance, it's about truth. When Luna tells Harry about the diadem, it isn't with urgency or desperation, it's with calm precision. She trusts him to understand. She gives him direction, but not command. This subtle dynamic, offering help without demanding control, is rare in wartime stories. It gives their interaction a kind of sacredness. Her guidance leads them not just to the diadem, but to the room of requirement, a place that appears only when one is in great need. It is fitting, then, that Luna is the one to bring him there. She, more than anyone, understands need, not for glory, but for understanding. And in the room they find what they seek. Not just a Horcrux, but a sliver of hope. The diadem's destruction is violent, almost grotesque, but its discovery is peaceful, quiet, led by a girl who once wore turnip earrings and spoke of Nargles. That contrast is powerful. It reminds us that the path to victory is not always paved in violence. Sometimes it begins with listening to someone you've never truly heard before. By the time the dust settles and the war ends, Luna's role may fade from the headlines. But that one moment, her hand reaching for Harry's, her voice breaking through his panic, echoes. It changes something in him, in us. She became not just a guide, but a mirror, reflecting the best parts of the people around her, showing them who they might become, if only they chose to listen. The books gave Luna the soul of a mystic, a quiet philosopher in the halls of battle. The film gave her a purpose, to shape fate with that quietness, to turn a whisper into a cry that led a hero home. The moment she grabbed Harry's hand, everything changed. Not the story's end, but its heart. Number 19, Draco tosses the wand to Voldemort. During the climactic final battle of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, a scene unfolds that was either invented for the screen or drastically reimagined from what J.K. Rowling penned in her novel. It is the moment when Draco Malfoy, pale and trembling, approaches Lord Voldemort on the broken stone steps of Hogwarts and throws his wand to him. This act, seemingly simple in action, carries the weight of years of fear, indoctrination, and quiet rebellion. In the book, Draco never offers his wand. He disappears into the background, a shadow of the boy we once knew. But in the film, this moment is crafted as a visual and emotional punctuation, a symbol of Draco's internal collapse, of his subtle defiance, and of the soul-deep humiliation of being a pawn under Voldemort's gaze. The camera frames Draco's hesitant steps toward the Dark Lord as a trek of dread. He has just been called from the crowd, where he stands beside his shell-shocked parents, Narcissa and Lucius, who look like ghosts of their former selves. Voldemort extends his hand with a crooked expectation, not asking, but demanding what he considers his due. And Draco, with a face twisted in reluctance and loathing, throws his wand to him. He doesn't hand it over like a servant. He hurls it like something foul, something he no longer wants to touch. That gesture, the flick of the wrist, the arc of the falling wand, becomes a statement more powerful than any words the character had ever spoken. Nowhere in Rowling's text does this scene exist. In the book, Draco is a quieter presence in the final battle. After Harry saves him from the fiend fire in the Room of Requirement, there is no triumphant return, no moment of reckoning. He is simply one of the many rescued. His story in the battle ends almost as a footnote, swallowed by larger conflicts. This cinematic edition, therefore, gives Draco something the book does not, a moment of choice. Though minor, it is his alone, unscripted by prophecy or family, untainted by expectation. In that moment, he chooses to express disgust, to distance himself emotionally from the man who once embodied power and promise. Tom Felton's performance adds texture where the script is minimal. He does not say a word as he walks forward, but his face is awash with despair. His body leans slightly away from Voldemort, betraying the instinct to flee. It's not loyalty that brings him forward, but the weight of fear and the absence of options. Still, when the wand leaves his hand in that bitter throw, there is a glint of resistance. It is not open rebellion, but a smouldering protest, the only one Draco can afford to make in a moment where defiance might mean death. The visual language of the scene enhances its power. Voldemort stands elevated on the steps, towering over Draco, robed like a phantom of ancient terror. The followers gathered around him are silent, their eyes watching for any crack in loyalty. Narcissa and Lucius especially hold their breath, not for Draco's survival, but for what this act might mean. When Draco's wand tumbles through the air and lands at Voldemort's feet, the silence deepens. This is no gift. It is surrender, but poisoned with disdain. Voldemort picks up the wand with a faint air of satisfaction, but one can't help sensing the insult embedded in the gesture. This invented scene accomplishes more in seconds than chapters of text sometimes can. It compresses Draco's entire arc, his fear, his conflicted morality, his exhaustion, into a single action. It reframes him not as the proud pure-blood prince from earlier films, nor as the snarling rival of Hogwarts' corridors, but as a boy broken by too many choices made for him. He has tried to please his family, to survive school under Voldemort's growing shadow, to protect what little sense of self he had, and now in the ruins of Hogwarts all he has left is the meagre power of a throw, and a throw filled with silent judgment. The absence of this scene in the books does not feel like a loss, but its inclusion in the film feels like a gain. The film medium, reliant on image and gesture, seizes the opportunity to explore Draco's psyche without overstepping the bounds of adaptation. The filmmakers understood that Draco's silence in the book was haunting, but on screen, silence without action can vanish into nothing. They gave him something tactile, something to punctuate his role in the war, even if it was small. It invites the viewer to consider what it means to comply when your soul revolts, what it means to obey while hating yourself for it. The contrast with the earlier Draco is stark. In Half-Blood Prince, he is a trembling boy tasked with murder, wandering the halls with haunted eyes, unable to kill Dumbledore even when left alone with him. In that moment, too, he faced a test of loyalty, but he failed to take a life, and that failure was mercy. Now, years later, he again faces a test. He is not asked to kill, but to offer. And in his offer, he finds a way to condemn. The wand does not fly like a gift, but falls like a curse. The significance of the wand itself cannot be understated. Wands in the Potter universe are symbols of agency, of identity. To part with your wand is to part with the instrument of your will. Voldemort's obsessive quest for the Elder Wand reinforces this idea. The wand becomes more than a tool. It becomes fate. So when Draco throws his wand, he is not simply giving up a stick of wood, he is surrendering his right to choose, his power to act. And yet the throw, that act of disgust, preserves something in him. It is not submission, it is survival laced with resentment. This resentment is visible in Lucius's own demeanour as well. Standing by, he does not urge Draco forward, nor does he shield him. He is a husk of the man who once sneered from the ministry's halls. His hands, usually clasped in control, tremble slightly. Narcissa, too, watches her son with aching eyes, perhaps sensing that each step he takes chips away at his soul. The family, once proud and polished, now stands as the embodiment of broken nobility. And Draco at their centre is the boy who still dares to resist, even if only in gesture. The book paints a different ending. After the battle, when Harry confronts Voldemort in the Great Hall, the Malfoys are no longer present. Rowling writes, Draco was on the floor, nearly dead, near the crumbling remains of the Room of Requirement. He has no grand arc in the final moments. There is no closure, no scene where he reclaims his identity or speaks his truth. And yet the film chooses to let him linger a little longer, enough to whisper with his body that he is not what Voldemort made him. This edition brings nuance to the Malfoy narrative. It shows how fear can coexist with hatred, how submission can mask contempt. It allows Draco to express something that the book, in its rush toward resolution, had no space for. That tiny throw becomes a protest against everything. The Dark Lord, his family's ideals, the life he never chose. He doesn't become a hero, doesn't fight beside Harry, doesn't save anyone. But he does something almost as hard. He survives with a conscience intact. In a story so concerned with big magic and grand acts, this quiet rebellion is easy to overlook, yet it mirrors the strength of characters like Regulus Black, who turned against Voldemort in silence, or Narcissa herself, who lied to the Dark Lord to save her son. These are not Gryffindor heroics, they are Slytherin acts of defiance, subtle, strategic, deeply personal. And Draco's gesture fits into that lineage. It is a rebellion born not of courage but of exhaustion and loathing. The symbolism extends beyond Draco. In throwing the wand, he contaminates it. Voldemort, who believes in purity and control, receives not an offering but a rebuke. The wand comes to him not as a tribute but as a stain. It reminds us that even in defeat, even when kneeling, the oppressed can speak. And sometimes what they say without words rings louder than any shouted spell. The scene's silence is its weapon. No music blares to amplify the moment. No cries break the tension. It is as if time stills to observe a boy making his choice. The wand lands. Voldemort bends to pick it up. The world resumes, but it is changed. Draco's throw has pierced the narrative. It has created a pause in Voldemort's domination. And that pause is sacred. In all the cacophony of battle, spells, shouts, explosions, this scene stands apart. It is not noisy. It does not burn with special effects. It is quiet, almost tender in its tragedy. And that makes it one of the most human moments in the entire saga. For here stands a boy who has had enough and who can do nothing except show it in the only way left to him. The artistry of this edition lies in its restraint. It does not turn Draco into a hero. It does not redeem him. It simply illuminates the corner of his soul that still resists, that still burns with identity. He may still return to his family. He may still carry shame. But for one moment he acts not as a Malfoy, not as a Death Eater's son, but as a boy who wants none of it anymore. In stories like Harry Potter, where destinies are written in prophecy and characters often bear immense burdens, it is rare to see someone choose nothing, to choose silence, withdrawal, or a disgusted gesture. But these are choices too, and sometimes they are the only choices left. The film gave Draco a voice he never had on the page, and in doing so gave viewers a rare glimpse into the quiet resistance of those who survive. The spell was never cast, but the message was clear. The throw of the wand was not just a physical act. It was a wound, a scar, a declaration. And in that moment, without any words spoken, Draco Malfoy finally told the world, "I am not yours." Number 20, Ron and Harry's fight in the forest. The forest was quiet, but tension pulsed through the stillness like electricity through a wire. Beneath the bare winter branches, the trio's makeshift camp had become a crucible. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the film added heat to that crucible by crafting a confrontation between Ron and Harry far more volatile than anything found in the pages of the book. The scene of their explosive fallout in the forest wasn't just intensified, it was partially invented, sculpted to show the raw edges of teenage emotion under siege. In the novel, the tension smoulders and cracks. In the film, it ignites. In the book, Ron's departure is sharp but brief, a burst of frustration, jealousy, and fear. The narrative gives us his bitterness, his words, and then his absence. "You don't know what it's like. You're not on your own. You've got a family," Ron snaps, and then he's gone. But the camera, unbound by narration, lingers. It captures more than text can imply. The cold forest becomes a stage for unraveling loyalties. The visual medium seizes the subtext and brings it crashing into the open. This is not just about Horcruxes or hunger or fear. This is about everything that's ever lingered beneath the surface of their friendship. When Harry and Ron clash in the film, it's not a moment of quiet resentment, it's a storm. They yell, Ron advances, Harry shoves, their bodies speak what their mouths can't say. These are not the collected, brave Gryffindors we remember from their school days. These are desperate boys with scraped souls and cracked voices. The physicality of the scene was a directorial decision, a way to make viewers feel the strain. The audience is not merely reading about a breakup, they're witnessing the collapse of a brotherhood. In the book, Hermione is the tearful witness, begging Ron to stay. She screams after him, but there's no real fight. In the film, she's torn between them, caught in the fire, eyes wild with disbelief and heartbreak. Her presence magnifies the betrayal, not just of Harry, but of her. The triangle of friendship splinters on screen in a way that text only brushes. The adaptation team knew what they were doing. The audience needed to feel how close these three were to losing each other forever. David Yates, the director, used the medium of cinema to highlight the internal war raging within Ron. He made the invisible visible. The Horcrux, an artifact that preys on fear and insecurity, becomes more than a piece of cursed jewelry in the film. It's a character in itself, whispering darkness into Ron's mind. In the movie, it throbs with menace, its red glow flashing like a warning light. Every glance Ron throws at Harry carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts. The Horcrux doesn't just affect him, it transforms him. Rupert Grint, portraying Ron, delivered one of his finest performances in this scene. The tears in his eyes, the trembling rage in his voice, the way he throws his bag over his shoulder. All of it feels authentic. He isn't just acting betrayal, he's embodying the years of shadow he has lived in. The youngest son, the sidekick, the second best. His fury isn't a spontaneous explosion, it's been simmering since Philosopher's Stone. The film taps into that long-term tension, giving Ron a moment to finally scream out his pain. In contrast, Daniel Radcliffe's Harry holds his ground with a different kind of fire. He's confused but not cowed. He doesn't chase after Ron, he doesn't beg. His face hardens, and for a second the boy who lived looks utterly alone. This is a critical point in Harry's arc. The film shows us his growing detachment, not out of cruelty, but necessity. He is becoming the soldier Dumbledore raised him to be. Friends are luxury. Mission is survival. That moment Standing amid trees with Ron gone and Hermione sobbing is where Harry begins to sever himself emotionally. The difference in tone between the book and the film lies in how grief is shown. Rowling's prose conveys loneliness through description and internal monologue. The film, however, paints it with silence and stares. As Ron disappears into the woods, Hermione doesn't run after him. She stands, frozen. The snow crunches, the wind howls, there's no music, just loss. The camera lingers on Harry's expression, not panicked, but quietly shattered. For a moment, the audience shares his desolation. This departure scene redefined Ron for film-only viewers. In the books, he is beloved, but often overshadowed. In the films, this scene forces the audience to see him, not as comic relief, not as the third wheel, but as a human being under pressure. He isn't perfect. He's jealous, reactive, impulsive. But he is real. This was a Ron who could break, and in breaking became something more than just a friend. He became a mirror, reflecting everything that could go wrong when hope starts to rot. The argument was also essential for Hermione's arc. In the book, her loyalty is unquestioned but subdued. She stays with Harry, but her grief is muffled in text. In the film, Emma Watson's Hermione is torn. She's caught in a moral crisis. Should she have gone with Ron? Was Harry right to push him? The indecision in her eyes reveals volumes. She becomes more than the clever girl who solves riddles. She becomes the emotional glue that struggles but refuses to crumble. Her silence after Ron leaves is louder than words. Symbolically, the forest is the perfect place for this fracture. Forests in mythology and literature often represent danger, transformation, and isolation. Here, the trio is no longer protected by the walls of Hogwarts. They are vulnerable, exposed. Nature watches them, indifferent. The fire that once brought them warmth now flickers before a broken trinity. This shift from warmth to cold reflects their journey. They are not children anymore. They are soldiers in a war with no rules. One of the most haunting aspects of the film's scene is the suggestion that this fight was inevitable. The Horcrux merely accelerated what was always there. The jealousy, the fear, the sense of inadequacy. These weren't new emotions. They had been growing for years. The film gives them voice. It allows Ron to shout what readers always suspected he felt. "You have no family," he screams in the movie, the line slicing through the cold air. It's cruel, it's honest, it's teenage pain unfiltered. And yet, this scene doesn't vilify Ron. It humanizes him. That's the brilliance of the adaptation. The audience is meant to ache for both boys. Harry left behind. Ron consumed by insecurity. The film doesn't pick sides, it merely shows the fracture in all its raw truth. By doing so, it earns Ron's redemption later. When he returns, drenched, changed, humbled, his reunion with Harry is not just a relief, it's a resurrection. Forgiveness feels earned, not assumed. It's easy to forget how young they are. The films, with their somber tones and wartime atmosphere, make it easy to see them as miniature adults, but this scene is a reminder. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are still teenagers. Teenagers with the weight of the world on their shoulders, hunted, starving, unsure. The scene in the forest brings that home, the shouting, the tears, the slamming of fists. It's the language of youth, cracking under pressure. What's remarkable is how this moment reshapes the trio's dynamic for the rest of the film. After Ron leaves, there's a silence that pervades everything. Hermione barely speaks. Harry moves like a ghost. Their missions continue, but their hearts aren't in it. It isn't just a missing person, it's a missing rhythm. The film lets that emptiness hang. It's a choice, a commitment to showing emotional consequence. From a cinematic standpoint, the scene is shot with careful restraint. No overdone music, no dramatic slow motion, just shaking hands, clenched jaws, snow-covered earth. The forest becomes a character, quiet, judging, ancient. The color palette fades to grey and blue, the warmth of the past snuffed out. The director knew the weight of the moment didn't need exaggeration, it needed honesty. The evolution from book to film in this scene isn't betrayal, it's amplification. The book hinted, the film declared. The book gave Ron the chance to leave. The film forced us to watch him go. There's a difference. One is theoretical heartbreak, the other is felt in the gut. Readers may understand the pain, viewers must endure it, and in doing so they understand the cost of friendship during war. There are few moments in the film series as emotionally naked as this one. It's a turning point, not in plot but in tone. After this, the war isn't just something outside, it's inside Ron's heart, inside Harry's silence, inside Hermione's tears. The journey becomes heavier, the cost becomes personal. The Horcrux may have amplified Ron's darkness, but the scene in the forest made sure we saw it, named it, felt it. Without it, his return would feel like convenience. With it, it feels like a triumph. And so, in this invented moment, a scene crafted and expanded by filmmakers, we find truth. Not just in the characters, but in ourselves. Friendship isn't always smiles and loyalty. Sometimes it's silence and screaming, sometimes it's walking away, but sometimes it's also coming back. And when Ron comes back, later in the film, the hug he shares with Harry is earned not by a line in the script, but by this moment in the forest. A fight that never existed on paper, but lives forever on screen. Number 21, Fred Weasley's death and George's reaction. Fred Weasley's death was a cruel twist in a war already steeped in tragedy, but it was the silence that followed, the wordless collapse of joy that truly crushed the spirit. In the book, the moment of Fred's death is a grim notation in a fast-paced battle. Rowling writes, "And Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them, and Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face." It is swift and brutal, a cut that bleeds but does not linger. The reader, forced to rush forward, barely has time to mourn. It is the nature of war, perhaps, to not pause for grief. But the film refuses that. The film stares, it holds that gaze, and in that stillness it finds something that the book deliberately stepped around, the unbearable aftermath. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Fred's death is not dramatized through action or words, but through a single image that never existed in the books. It is not Fred's final joke or his last breath that pierces the heart. It is George. He kneels beside his brother, frozen in silence. His hand rests on Fred's chest, not checking for life, but acknowledging its absence. The camera does not move. It does not pan or pull away. It lingers as if time itself has stopped to mourn. And George does not cry. He does not scream. He simply exists in that pain. That moment, invented for the screen, says more about loss than pages of dialogue ever could. The Weasley twins were never meant to be separated. From the earliest days at Hogwarts, Fred and George were a single heartbeat, thumping to the rhythm of pranks, laughter, and mischief. They were firecrackers in human form, a defiant joy in a world increasingly dark. When Harry first meets them, they are inseparable. Even their sentences weave together, overlapping, completing each other's thoughts. When Dolores Umbridge tries to crush the school under her pink tyranny, it is the twins who erupt in a shower of fireworks, proclaiming that laughter is the last rebellion. Their identity was never divided. To break that unity was to shatter something sacred. That is why the moment in the film is so devastating. The image of George alone, his hand resting on Fred's unmoving chest, is not just a visual cue of death. It is the symbolic death of unity, the end of a partnership that had defined joy itself in the series. The filmmakers did not need to show the explosion that killed Fred, nor did they need to replay his final words. All they needed was George, and silence, because the audience, having laughed with them, needed only that to understand the magnitude of what was lost. The book spares us this. It lets Fred go in the chaos of war with barely a paragraph to say goodbye. There are too many dead, too much at stake. But the film holds its ground. It chooses to pause. The reaction of George, created entirely for the screen, is not just grief, it is shock, frozen in time. His silence is more powerful than any scream. It becomes the embodiment of what was truly lost at the Battle of Hogwarts, not just life, but the light that once burned inside it. This is not a criticism of the books. Rowling made deliberate choices. War, she seems to say, does not allow time for mourning, but cinema is different. It can slow down, it can lock the viewer's eyes on a single moment and demand that they feel. And in doing so, the film adaptation gives Fred's death the emotional weight that readers might have missed. It is a gift to the character and, more importantly, to George. Throughout the series, Fred and George were often reduced to comic relief. They were the tricksters, the loud ones, the chaos bringers, but beneath the jokes was always loyalty, courage, and love. The twins didn't just laugh at the world, they protected it from despair. Their jokes were shields. Their pranks were weapons against hopelessness. To lose that spirit, to see it extinguished in battle, is to understand what the war truly cost. The stillness of George's grief is not just for his brother. It is for himself, for who he was when Fred was alive, for who he will never be again. That moment on screen, so brief and yet so permanent, becomes the eulogy the books never gave. It is not spoken, but it is heard in every silent second that follows. The absence of words becomes a monument. It is important to remember that George survives. He lives. But he is never the same. In the books, we are told, George would never be quite the same again. That single sentence is all the reader receives. But the film shows us what that means. We see it in George's stillness, in the way he looks at Fred's body, not with disbelief, but with a hollow acceptance. There is no comfort in that gaze, only the beginning of a new, unwanted reality. This creative decision by the filmmakers is a rare case where cinema does not expand through spectacle, but through silence. It does not add action or dialogue, it subtracts. It distills grief into its purest form and gives it to us in a single image. It is anti-theatrical, it is anti-Hollywood, and yet it is unforgettable in a franchise filled with wands, dragons, and explosions. It is this quiet moment that stays. The strength of the scene lies in its restraint. There are no flashbacks, no dramatic music, just the weight of loss. Even the color palette changes, the lighting dims, the world turns grey, and time seems to stop. George's red hair becomes the only bright color in the frame, a final echo of the vibrant life that once was. It is visual storytelling at its most effective, and it was never in the book. This is the power of adaptation. Not all scenes need to be faithful. Some need to be truthful in a different way. By imagining this scene, the filmmakers found a truth that was hidden between the lines of the text. They brought it to the surface. They made it seen. And in doing so, they changed the way fans understand that moment forever. It also elevates George. He is not just the one who survived. He is the mirror of Fred's absence. Every step he takes from that moment forward carries the echo of another step that will never be taken. Every word he speaks is half of a conversation. The film reminds us of this. It doesn't let us forget, and in that way, it does something beautiful for a character who could have been forgotten in the rush of battle. There is no moving on from such loss. Not truly. And the film does not pretend there is. It does not give George a final speech or a moment of revenge. It gives him something rarer. Stillness. In a world where magic bends reality, where people rise from the dead and spells fix broken bones, grief remains untouched. It cannot be healed. It must be endured. And that is what we see in George's silence. Endurance. not recovery. It is the moment when childhood ends, not just for George, but for the audience. The Weasley twins had been a constant source of comfort. If they could die, then anyone could. If they could be silenced, then the world had truly changed. This is the emotional turning point of the war. Not a spell, not a duel, but a broken brother holding the other in silence. There is something sacred in that image. George's hand does not try to wake Fred. He knows it is over. He holds him not out of hope, but out of refusal to let go too soon. That one gesture, invented for the screen, becomes a universal act of grief. How many times have we all done the same? Not in war, perhaps, but in loss. Held something we loved, knowing it was gone, but not ready to release it. This moment also marks a shift in tone for the final act of the film. From then on, the battles feel different. The stakes are no longer abstract. Death is not just a name in a book. It is a face that once laughed and now lies still. Every victory that follows carries that weight. It is a reminder that the cost was too high, that even triumph cannot undo what has been lost. It is worth noting how this scene contrasts with other deaths in the series. Dobby's death is heartbreaking, but it comes with last words and heroic action. Snape's death is shrouded in mystery, later revealed to be full of meaning. But Fred's death and George's reaction are not about plot. They are not about secrets or sacrifice. They are about the finality of loss, the brutal, senseless theft of joy. The choice to focus on George in this way was bold. It risked slowing the film's pace, but it paid off. It gave the audience something they didn't know they needed, a chance to mourn, a chance to pause, to look, to feel. And in doing so, it made the magic of the story feel more real than ever before. This was not in the book, but it was in the spirit of the story, in a series about love and sacrifice, about the power of human connection. This quiet moment said more than any spell could. George holding Fred is not just a scene, it is a scar, a permanent mark. And for many fans, it is the moment they remember most, not because of what was said, but because of what was not. Number 22, Harry breaks the Elder Wand. In the final film adaptation of J.K. Rowling's epic series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, there is a moment of stunning cinematic defiance. On the ruins of Hogwarts Bridge, surrounded by scorched stone and quiet aftermath, Harry Potter holds the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand ever made, and snaps it in two. He doesn't hesitate, he doesn't debate. With one quick motion, the wand is broken and its pieces fall into the depths below. This scene, bold and theatrical, never happened in the book. It was invented specifically for the screen. And yet, despite the deviations from canon, it carries a powerful visual message. It represents Harry's rejection of power in its purest form. In Rowling's novel, the Elder Wand's fate is more subdued, more intimate. After the final confrontation, Harry uses the wand to repair his own broken holly and phoenix feather wand, the wand that had chosen him back in Ollivander's and had remained loyal throughout his journey. "I'm putting the Elder Wand back where it came from," Harry tells Ron and Hermione in the book, referring to Dumbledore's tomb. "If I die a natural death like Ignotus, its power will be broken, won't it?" Rowling's Harry is methodical, careful. He understands the power he holds and the consequences of its misuse. He does not destroy the wand, he neutralizes it by returning it to its resting place. The film's decision to have Harry destroy the wand entirely is a radical reinterpretation of that narrative. It transforms a quiet, reasoned choice into a symbolic act of rebellion. In the visual language of cinema, breaking the wand is dramatic, final. It offers a sense of closure that is immediate and physical. The audience sees the power of the wand shattered and with it the end of an era. There is no ambiguity in the gesture. Harry is done with war, with death, with destiny. The decision is irrevocable. This choice sparked significant debate among fans. Purists questioned the logic. If the wand is broken, how is its power contained? Others argued that Harry could have used it to repair countless damages from the battle, but the film doesn't concern itself with practicality. It concerns itself with the myth. The destruction of the Elder Wand is the destruction of the legend. Harry is not only ending Voldemort's reign, he is ending the story of the Deathly Hallows itself. He does not want to be the master of death. He wants to be a boy who lived. The scene is deeply in character for the film's version of Harry. Throughout the movies, his reluctance to embrace leadership, his disdain for attention, and his discomfort with fame are accentuated. He avoids the spotlight. He shrinks from praise. This Harry would not keep a wand that promises godlike power. He would reject it viscerally and visibly. Breaking the wand affirms his identity as someone who never sought power, only peace. It's the ultimate renunciation. There is also a visual poetry to the scene. The bridge is cracked and trembling. The sky is muted with ash and smoke. In this ruined landscape, Harry's gesture is almost sacred. The wand, once feared and coveted, is reduced to splinters. It falls into the chasm like a relic discarded by a weary prophet. There is a sense of renewal in this act. The war is over. The symbols of power no longer have meaning. The bridge itself, suspended in midair, becomes a threshold. On one side, the chaos of battle. On the other, the uncertain peace of what comes next. Comparing this to the book, the emotional tone is different. Rowling's version is quieter, more personal. When Harry repairs his own wand, it is an act of restoration. He returns to who he was before the war. The wand he loved, the wand that matched him perfectly, is whole again. It is a gesture of healing. The Elder Wand is returned to Dumbledore's tomb with reverence. Its story ends where it began. This moment reflects the book's overall theme of balance, of returning things to their rightful place. The quote from the book, "I'm putting the Elder Wand back where it came from," echoes the spirit of humility that defines Harry's journey. He has been offered every kind of power, political, magical, mythological. He walks away from all of it. Like Ignotus Peverell, the original owner of the invisibility cloak, Harry chooses a mortal life. The power of the Elder Wand, passed down through conquest and bloodshed, is no longer needed. Harry's rejection is rational, responsible, and complete. But film is a different language. It requires physical acts to convey internal states. Repairing a wand is quiet and difficult to dramatize. Dropping an object into a tomb is not compelling visual storytelling. Snapping the Elder Wand, however, is bold. It speaks without dialogue. It tells the audience everything they need to know in one gesture. The music swells. The pieces fall. Harry walks away. It's a perfect cinematic punctuation mark. Some fans have argued that this scene diminishes the mythos. After all, the Elder Wand is not just a tool. It is a character in its own right. Its history is long and bloodied. It has passed through the hands of Antioch Peverell, Gregorovitch, Grindelwald, and Dumbledore. Each of its masters wielded it for a different purpose: ambition, curiosity, domination, justice. To see it broken so easily feels abrupt, but that's the point. Its long journey ends not in a duel, but in dismissal. It's a rejection of everything it ever represented. The moment also draws a sharp contrast with Voldemort. Throughout the series, Voldemort is obsessed with conquering death and mastering power. He murders to gain the Elder Wand. He misinterprets loyalty. He never truly understands that power is not enough. In the end, he dies because of that flaw. Harry, in contrast, understands that the wand is only dangerous because people desire it. By destroying it, he breaks the cycle. No one will kill for it again. What makes the film version so affecting is that it strips away the complexity and leaves only the essence. The wand is a symbol. Break the wand, break the power. It is not logical, but it is truthful in a mythological sense, like King Arthur returning Excalibur to the lake or Frodo casting the ring into Mount Doom. The destruction of the Elder Wand signifies a return to balance. It's the end of an age. Interestingly, the act of breaking the wand is a move of pure agency. Harry is no longer reacting to events. He is no longer following prophecies, taking orders, or surviving attacks. This is his choice entirely. He decides what the future will look like. He chooses a life without the burden of power. It's a quiet revolution. Some viewers found the scene jarring. They wanted closure in the form of explanations, continuity, and consequences. The book provides this. It assures us that the wand is safe, that it will not tempt future generations. The film does not give us this assurance, but in doing so it trusts the audience to accept the gesture. It asks us to believe in Harry's judgment. It asks us to feel the meaning rather than spell it out. The symbolism is unmistakable. The Elder Wand, born of death and conquest, is unmade by a boy who never wanted to kill. It is a statement of values. It is a farewell to war. Harry has suffered enough. He has lost friends, mentors, innocence. The wand offers him compensation. He refuses it. That's the true victory. In the world of Harry Potter, artifacts are often extensions of character. The Marauder's map reflects mischief. The Horcruxes reflect fragmentation. The Elder Wand reflects dominancy. Its destruction, then, is not just about Harry. It is about a world reshaped. It is about ending the legacy of those who sought to control it. Visually, the film captures this beautifully. The color palette is somber. The music is restrained. There is no applause, no validation. Just Harry, alone on a bridge, making a decision that no one else witnesses. It is personal and powerful. It does not need an audience. It needs only truth. And yet this moment might not work without everything that came before. We have seen Harry refuse the ministry, question Dumbledore, mourn Sirius, spare Draco. We know that he is capable of selflessness. We trust him. So when he breaks the wand, we believe it's right. It is not a twist. It is a culmination. It is also, in a way, a rejection of legacy. The Elder Wand represents the past, ancient magic, old battles, forgotten feuds. Harry is not interested in carrying it forward. He wants to build something new, something ordinary. In this, he is like Ignotus, whose choice to live and die unseen was the wisest of all. Rowling's book honors this choice with restraint. The film honors it with fire. There is power in both versions. One restores, one destroys, one is quiet, one is loud, but both are true to Harry's core. A boy who never wanted to be a hero, but became one by choosing love over fear, peace over power. The wand is gone, the war is over. The story ends not with a bang, but with a choice. Number 23. The bridge collapse in Half-Blood Prince. The Millennium Bridge groaned, twisted, and collapsed into the Thames, while the camera soared over London like a ghost released from the veil. Dark clouds churned above the skyline, and lightning cast jagged shadows across glass and steel. From the very first moment of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the film seized the viewer by the collar, proclaiming, "The war has begun." The destruction of the Millennium Bridge was not just a visual spectacle, it was a fabricated moment, born entirely in the minds of filmmakers, absent from J.K. Rowling's text. And yet it struck with more force than a dozen pages of exposition. It demanded the audience witness what the book only whispered. It dragged the unseen horrors into the light. In Rowling's version, the Death Eater's terror campaigns are reported through the sterile filter of the Daily Prophet. The book opens with the Prime Minister of Muggle Britain being told of a collapsed bridge, among other magical disturbances. 2 days ago, a hurricane tore through West Country, and the Brockdale Bridge collapsed, Scrimgeour explains. The Brockdale Bridge, that was not a hurricane. The implication is chilling, but fleeting. Readers are told, not shown, and the moment is buried under political satire and the Prime Minister's befuddlement. The collapse becomes one line in a list of casualties, a background note in a storm of narrative. The film chose a different path. Director David Yates, collaborating with screenwriter Steve Kloves and production designer Stuart Craig, elevated the implied horror into immediate experience. The choice was deliberate and effective. Instead of reading that terror had reached the Muggle world, the audience sees it: twisted metal, panicked faces, and a skyline cloaked in dread. The bridge scene does not just add spectacle, it manifests an idea. The magical war is no longer confined to shadowy forests or isolated castles. Voldemort's reach now touches the heart of Muggle civilization. As viewers, we fly alongside the Death Eaters, Bellatrix Lestrange and Fenrir Greyback among them, as they streak like malevolent comets across the sky. They are not stealthy, they want to be seen. They swirl through London in broad daylight, bursting into Diagon Alley and apparating out in a storm of shattered glass. Their cruelty is no longer surgical, it is theatrical. These acts are meant to be witnessed. The destruction of the bridge, with its graceful suspension cables and open pedestrian walkway, becomes a symbol. There is no safe place, not for wizards, not for Muggles, not anymore. This is not the first time the Harry Potter films expanded the visual language of Rowling's world, but this moment, created wholly from scratch, carries narrative weight. It establishes tone. From the moment the bridge falls, the audience knows this film will not linger in the innocence of earlier entries. The fantasy is decaying, the danger is real, and that realism begins with steel girders snapping like bones. What makes this moment so effective is its realism. The Millennium Bridge is a real structure, opened in 2000 and famously swaying on its first day. It is a landmark. Destroying it on screen merges fiction with the real world. The audience recognizes the bridge. Some may have walked across it. The horror then becomes personal. The film blurs boundaries between magical fantasy and urban reality. The result is unnerving. This isn't some distant village like Little Hangleton. This is London. Voldemort is here. The filmmakers use the scene not just to show destruction, but to reveal the psychology of the Death Eaters. Bellatrix Lestrange, wild-haired and wild-eyed, laughs as the bridge trembles beneath fleeing Muggles. Fenrir Greyback stalks through London with Lupin menace, his hunger not merely for violence, but for fear. They are predators playing with their prey. They do not need to destroy the bridge. They choose to. They do it for fun. And in that moment, they do not feel like wizards. They feel like terrorists. There is something profoundly cinematic about the way the destruction unfolds. The sweeping aerial shots, the sound of cables snapping like whip cracks, the swell of Nicholas Hooper's score. It's orchestrated like a ballet of chaos. The collapse is shown in a single, long shot. The camera glides down as the bridge undulates and folds, taking dozens of pedestrians into the grey waters below. The panic is palpable. There is no dialogue, just screams, metal, and the river. That silence says everything. The scene also functions as a mirror. In Order of the Phoenix, the Ministry of Magic fights to hide the truth. They claim safety. They deny Voldemort's return. But now, in Half-Blood Prince, the lie is shattered like the bridge itself. The Muggle world has been drawn into a war they cannot understand or defend against. This changes the rules of the series. No longer can magic remain secret. No longer can Harry pretend he's just a student. The war is public now. The mask has been ripped away. For all its impact, this moment never occurs in the book. Rowling's choice to keep Voldemort's violence mostly unseen was purposeful. Her narrative remains focused on the magical world. But film is a visual medium. It thrives on imagery. The destruction of the Millennium Bridge gives form to fear. It transforms abstract threat into visceral spectacle. It pulls the audience out of the comfort of Dumbledore's office and into the world where horror walks in daylight. Some purists objected. They argued that the addition was unnecessary, that it twisted the tone of the original story. But such critiques misunderstand the power of adaptation. The film does not rewrite Rowling's words, it interprets them. The bridge collapse embodies what the book implies, that Voldemort is no longer a whisper in the shadows. He is now a thunderclap in the city. Even Harry himself feels the weight of this shift. Though he does not witness the attack, the tone of his world has changed. The boy who once dreamed of broomsticks and Quidditch now reads headlines of dead families and missing children. The lightness of earlier years has vanished. His life, like the bridge, has fractured. There is no return to the way things were. This fabricated scene also foreshadows the collapse of other bridges, metaphorical ones. Trust between wizards and muggles, unity among magical factions, the safety of Hogwarts, all are about to break. The visual metaphor is potent. When the Death Eaters destroy the bridge, they are not just attacking infrastructure. They are breaking connections, toppling illusions of peace and security. The inclusion of the scene also subtly honors the book's subtext. Rowling never spells out every act of Death Eater violence, but they haunt the background. The bridge collapse is mentioned, so are other disappearances and freak accidents. By expanding on these hints, the film paints a fuller picture of a world unraveling. The bridge becomes shorthand for all the terror Rowling implied, but never detailed. The cinematography reinforces this message. London is shot in cold blues and greys. The Death Eaters are swirling smudges of black. The bridge gleams with silver, then twists like a serpent. Even the weather participates. A storm breaks above the city as the attack begins. The atmosphere is heavy, almost biblical. The city does not just suffer, it mourns. This invented moment also sets up emotional contrast. Later in the film, when Dumbledore dies, his absence hits harder because we've seen what's at stake. The bridge scene is a prophecy of sorts. It tells the audience things will get worse. And they do. When Bill is attacked, when Katie Bell is cursed, when Ron is poisoned, each horror feels more credible because the film opened with an unmistakable act of terror. It's also worth noting that the bridge scene gives the Muggle world a presence. So often in the books, Muggles are oblivious spectators. Their world runs parallel to the magical one, rarely intersecting. But here, they suffer too. They scream, they fall, they die. And that changes the emotional equation. The cost of the war is no longer magical. It is human. From a storytelling perspective, the decision to begin the film with this scene is bold. It rearranges the structure of the novel, pushing exposition to the side in favor of emotion. It grabs attention. It hooks the viewer. In a book, you can slowly build tension. In film, you often need to show it. And the collapse of the Millennium Bridge does that perfectly. It sets the tone without a single word. In retrospect, this fabricated scene stands among the strongest openings in the Harry Potter film series, not because it is canonical, but because it is true to the emotional core of the story. It captures what the characters will soon learn, that Voldemort does not play by rules, that war is chaos, and that even the strongest bridges can fall. The books gave us Harry's internal world. The films gave us the external consequences. And in this case, the invented scene became essential. Not for the plot, but for the feeling that safety is gone. The feeling that the magical and Muggle worlds have collided. The feeling that, like the bridge, everything could collapse, and indeed, it would. Number 24, Harry comforts Luna after Dobby's death. After the battle at Malfoy Manor, when the ragged group of survivors arrived at Shell Cottage, grief clung to them like sea mist. Dobby's death was sudden, brutal in its honesty, and undeserved. He had not fallen in a grand duel or in the chaos of battle, but in a flash of violence while saving others, an act so pure, so selfless, that it left everyone who had known him hollowed. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1, there is a quiet, luminous scene that does not exist in J.K. Rowling's original text. It is not long, just a moment, a breath of silence after the storm, but it redefines both Luna Lovegood and Harry Potter in a way no words in the book ever did. In this invented film scene, Harry stands by the small grave he has just dug with his own hands. He is exhausted, shoulders bent, not only from the effort of shoveling the sand, but from the weight of grief. The sea murmurs behind him, wind threading through his hair. And beside him stands Luna Lovegood, her eyes soft, her voice gentler than usual, as she murmurs that Dobby is happy now he's with his friends. These words, absent from the book, strike with unexpected depth. The Luna of the novels is ethereal, odd, but this moment reveals a new dimension, empathy, gravity, and maturity, wrapped in the same airy cadence that defines her. The book gives us a detailed and painful description of the burial. Harry dug with a kind of fury, Rowling writes, relinquishing the wand in favour of a spade and breaking the frozen earth with raw hands, blood smearing the handle. This passage shows Harry's need for penance, for effort, for honouring the one who died for him. But Luna's presence in the film casts this moment in a different light, not only as an act of sorrow, but as one of shared mourning. It's no longer a solitary ritual, it becomes communal, spiritual, even sacred. Luna's gentle commentary softens Harry's silent rage. She becomes the voice of peace when everything else feels torn. Luna, often dismissed as the quirky outcast of Ravenclaw, emerges in this moment as the emotional equal of Harry. She doesn't console him with logic or empty platitudes. She brings presence, and that is enough. It is not about what she says, but about what she doesn't say. In contrast to Hermione's sharp wit or Ron's clumsy sincerity, Luna's stillness offers something different. The scene allows her to evolve beyond the eccentric background character. She becomes a spiritual anchor, wise, comforting, and quietly brave. What is remarkable about this edition is how naturally it fits. It doesn't feel like a fabrication. Instead, it feels like a memory recovered, a scene that should have always been there. The filmmakers took liberties, yes, but they did so with reverence. They understood Luna's heart better than most readers perhaps did, and they recognized in Harry the need for this kind of support, not strategy, not planning, but grace. At that moment, he didn't need a plan. He needed someone to remind him of why they fight in the first place. Harry's gesture, placing a flat stone on the grave, has no counterpart in the book, yet it speaks louder than 100 spells. It echoes a Jewish tradition of honouring the dead, whether intentional or not, and underscores the quiet transformation in him. This is not the same boy who rushed headlong into danger at 11. This is a young man tempered by war, aware of its cost. He has seen Cedric fall, watched Sirius vanish behind the veil, seen Dumbledore's body broken at the base of the astronomy tower. And now Dobby, who had once been a strange, irritating creature, had died in his arms. Harry has learned the hardest lesson of all, how to mourn and still carry on. The filmmaker's choice to let this grief breathe is a masterstroke. In the book, the aftermath is dense with movement. Harry has a vision of Voldemort stealing the Elder Wand from Dumbledore's tomb. There is planning, talking, action. But in the film, the silence stretches. The world pauses, it gives room for reflection. And in that reflection, Luna becomes the unlikely shepherd of Harry's soul. She doesn't guide him forward, she simply stands with him, allowing him to be broken, to feel. There is something deeply human in how this moment contrasts with the grandeur of battle and magic. No spells are spoken, no special effects distract. It is earth and stone and sky. Just two young people standing by a grave, trying to make sense of the senseless. And in that raw simplicity lies the power of storytelling. The film did not invent the idea of grief, but it gave grief a new face, a younger one with silvery eyes and a calm voice, and another with dirt under his fingernails and tears in his eyes. This is not the Harry of prophecy, not the chosen one. This is Harry James Potter, just a boy who lost a friend. And it is not Luna the dreamer, it is Luna the healer, whose strange perception of the world allows her to see beauty even in death. She does not cry, she does not break, but she is there, unwavering. In the quiet of that moment, she gives Harry permission to feel, and in doing so, gives the audience permission as well. What's most profound is how the scene affects our perception of Harry's character. Throughout the series, he is expected to lead, to fight, to save. Rarely is he given the chance to fall apart. The book offers glimpses, his fury at Dumbledore's death, his collapse in the forest, but the film here dares to let him be small, wounded and comforted. It dares to let him be held, if not physically, then emotionally. And it dares to let Luna be the one who does the holding. There's a symmetry to this scene when compared to earlier moments in the series, in Order of the Phoenix. Luna is the one who comforts Harry after Sirius dies. She tells him, "The things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always, in the way we expect." That line has become iconic. But in the film, it is the spirit of this sentiment that returns. She doesn't need to say it again. She lives it. She shows it. She embodies it. Luna understands loss, not as an end, but as a continuation. And now she passes that understanding to Harry. Even the cinematography underlines the intimacy of the moment. The colours are muted, the light dimmed by the overcast sky. There's no dramatic music, only ambient sound, the ocean, the wind, the breath between two people, the earth being filled again. It's visual poetry, and it allows the characters to speak in silence. Luna's presence turns a burial into a benediction. This is the kind of artistic license that elevates adaptation. It doesn't rewrite the story, it refines it. It finds what was already there, between the lines in the heart of the characters, and brings it forward. One could argue it is not canon, but it feels truer than many written facts. It is emotional truth, and emotional truth is what makes stories endure. Harry's decision to bury Dobby without magic, as emphasized in the book, he dug with a spade, not with his wand, was already an act of respect. But the film adds a final grace note. That stone on the grave is not just a symbol of Dobby's passing. It is a symbol of Harry's growth. He has learned how to honor life, how to release pain, how to move forward without losing compassion. And Luna, the ever-strange, ever-wise girl beside him, becomes the quiet witness to that transition. In a story filled with thunderclaps, duels, prophecies, curses, it is this whisper that resonates longest. The scene's absence in the book does not make it less powerful. In fact, its invention proves that the heart of a story can beat even outside the boundaries of text. Luna's compassion, Harry's acceptance, Dobby's sacrifice, all are distilled into one moment by the sea. And in that stillness we understand something we hadn't before. We understand that heroism is not just about facing death, but about honoring it. That growing up is not just about fighting battles, but about burying friends with dignity. That love is not just about grand declarations, but about standing beside someone in silence. These truths might not be spelled out in dialogue or prose, but they are there, in the set of a shoulder, the softness of a voice, the placement of a stone. It is easy to overlook a scene so brief, so quiet. But its impact lingers, because it captures the essence of who Luna truly is, more than an oddity, more than comic relief. And it captures who Harry has become, no longer just the boy who lived, but the man who understands death, the man who chooses empathy over vengeance, tenderness over fury. In a world where magic can fix nearly anything, grief remains one of the few forces untouched. You cannot mend a broken heart with a wand, but you can stand beside someone else's, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes, as Luna reminds us, just being there is the most powerful spell of all. Number 25, Narcissa, Draco, and the Final Walk. The air was thick with dust and smoke, but the battle had ended. The ramparts of Hogwarts stood cracked, its walls scorched and broken, but the silence that followed was more powerful than any spell. Among the ruins the bodies lay strewn, heroes and villains indistinguishable under the weight of war. And it was in this stillness that the camera moved slowly, reverently, capturing one of the most haunting images of the entire Harry Potter film. Series. Narcissa and Lucius Malfoy, solemn and worn, walking hand in hand with their only son, Draco, away from the ruins of the great battle. No music guided their steps, no spells shimmered in the air. They walked away silently, unbothered, unchased, forgotten, and yet unforgettable. This moment, crafted wholly for the film, does not exist in the book. In J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the fate of the Malfoys after the battle is told in a single stroke, barely illuminated. The Malfoys were huddled together, apparently unsure whether or not they were supposed to be part of the victorious side or not. That is all. A line with no action, no movement, no direction, just a description of their uncertainty, their dislocation. But the film breathes life into that. Still image transforms it into motion, into symbol, into finality. They are not huddled anymore. They are walking away. It is not merely the act of leaving that gives this scene its depth. It is who they leave behind and what they no longer cling to. The Malfoys had always been draped in ideology, clad in power, wrapped tightly in the convictions of blood purity, superiority, and legacy. Lucius Malfoy had once stood beside Voldemort as a loyal servant, proud and cruel. Narcissa had borne the family's pride with quiet, icy dignity. Draco, their son, had been raised in privilege, in fear, and in the expectation of greatness, but as they leave the battlefield, they carry nothing of that with them, only each other. The power of this visual moment lies in its simplicity. There are no dramatic gestures, there is no redemption speech, no plea for forgiveness, no apology. The Malfoys do not weep, they do not collapse, they do not scream, they walk. Narcissa, once regal, now looks exhausted but unbroken. Lucius, whose arrogance had once filled every room he entered, appears like a man stripped of everything but his breath. Draco, still young, still haunted, walks between them. Their hands are linked, not as a show of unity, but as a grasp for survival. They have chosen, finally, not Voldemort, not bloodlines, not power. They have chosen each other. There is tragedy in the way they retreat, but there is dignity too. The battlefield is still stained with the blood of friends and enemies. The victorious gather. The dead are mourned, but no one reaches out to stop the Malfoys. No wand is raised, no insult is hurled. They are neither condemned nor embraced. And that is the point. They are outside of it all. They are no longer part of either world. This is not a triumph, it is not exile, it is simply release. The choice to create this scene in the film is not just an artistic liberty, it is an emotional necessity. It offers closure not through dialogue but through image. It tells us something crucial that the books only hint at. The war broke everyone. The good, the bad, the uncertain, even the pure-blood aristocrats who once dined with Death Eaters, especially them. For Lucius, the downfall had been long in coming. After losing Voldemort's trust, after watching his status deteriorate, after seeing his son forced to commit acts no boy should be asked to perform, there was nothing left of the man who had once sneered at Arthur Weasley in Diagon Alley. Draco's face in this scene deserves its own story. In the books he is described at the end only briefly. But the films allow us to see him, to linger on his features. He does not smile, he does not speak. He merely follows his parents, looking like a boy who has seen too much, aged too fast, and wants nothing more than to be elsewhere. The school he once ruled with cruelty is now a graveyard. The people he once mocked are now survivors. And he walks away from both. The silence of the scene is deafening. As Harry stands in the aftermath, as cheers begin to rise among the weary defenders of Hogwarts, the Malfoys step away with bowed heads. No music lifts the moment into sentimentality. There is no swelling orchestra, no emotional crescendo, just the scrape of their feet on stone, the weight of their steps, the physical manifestation of something far more abstract, the collapse of belief. This visual symbol speaks louder than any spell. The Malfoys were not saved, they were not absolved, but they survived, and in that survival there is a kind of confession. For Narcissa, this ending began earlier, when she lied to the Dark Lord, when she knelt beside Harry in the Forbidden Forest and whispered her truth. "Is Draco alive?" she asked, and when Harry nodded, she made a choice. "He is dead," she told Voldemort, a lie that changed everything, a mother's lie, the first breach in the wall of allegiance. That single act, born of maternal instinct, paved the way for this scene. It was the seed of betrayal that bore fruit in silence. Narcissa's choice in the forest is the unseen heart of their final retreat. She did not betray Voldemort for Harry. She did not betray him for the cause. She betrayed him for her son, and that is why at the end she does not kneel. She walks, with her family, away from everything. The symmetry is brutal and beautiful. The Malfoys once arrived at Hogwarts with swagger and pride. Lucius threatened the school governors. Draco strutted through the corridors like royalty. Narcissa, elegant and cold, believed the world to be built for her bloodline. Now they leave through the same halls in silence. No applause, no fanfare, only the sound of a family choosing peace, not as an ideology, but as necessity. There is a strange mercy in the way they are allowed to go. They are not captured, they are not punished, they are not forgiven. The war is over, and the victors do not care for revenge. That, too, is power, to let go, to allow the broken to walk. In that moment, the heroes of the battle prove their strength not by vengeance, but by indifference. And the Malfoys, who had once cared so deeply for perception, now crave only disappearance. Visually, the scene is crafted with precision. The colours are muted, the lighting is soft, almost grey. The fire is out, the sky is calm. It is as if the world itself has allowed them to fade. Narcissa's hand on Draco's shoulder is not commanding, it is protective. Lucius is limp, his unshaven face, his lost eyes, all mark a man who has no role left to play. They have been unmade, and yet they are more human now than they have ever been. This moment transforms them. It is not a redemption arc, it is not a plea, it is simply an epilogue to their story. The scene does not ask us to love them or even to understand them. It asks only that we witness their choice, to leave, to stop fighting, to stop pretending. There is honesty in their exit. For all their lies and cruelty, they do not attempt to mask their defeat. What is striking is the absence of anyone else. No Death Eaters remain to walk with them. No allies call their names. Even the Order of the Phoenix does not follow their path with watchful eyes. It is as if the war has erased the labels. They are no longer Death Eaters. They are no longer aristocrats. They are just three people, together, still breathing, still holding hands. The cinematic choice to elevate this moment is a masterstroke of storytelling. It takes the subtext of the books and brings it to the surface, not with exposition, but with silence. The absence of speech becomes the voice, the stillness becomes the statement. It is easy to forgive the filmmakers for deviating from the text when the result carries such weight, such sorrow, such fragile beauty. The war ends not just in triumph, but in exhaustion. And no one embodies that better than the Malfoys. They are not heroes, they are not martyrs, but they are done. And in that ending there is something oddly comforting. They have lost everything, status, allegiance, certainty. And in that emptiness they find something real, each other. No longer symbols of superiority, just people. The image lingers long after the credits roll. The trio disappearing into the mist, into history, into quiet. And perhaps that is the greatest magic of the scene. It does not demand your sympathy, only your attention. It tells you that even villains have families, that even cowards make choices, that even the proudest can fall, and when they do, they may not rise again, but they may walk away. The war spared few, but it changed all. For Harry, for Ron, for Hermione, victory came with loss. But for the Malfoys, survival came at the cost of everything they once valued. And yet they endure, in silence, in shadow, in the soft, fading footsteps on the battlefield of a world that no longer belongs to them.